The courtroom felt too cold for spring. I stood there, hands shaking, staring at my parents across the room. My mom avoided my eyes. My dad kept checking his watch like this was just another delay in his day. Then the clerk cleared her throat. "Your Honor," she said, holding up a stack of printed messages, "these are time-stamped texts sent during the plaintiff's surgery window." My chest tightened. The judge nodded. "Read them." The room went quiet. The clerk adjusted her glasses and began. "Message from Linda Carter at 9:12 a.m. She's probably overreacting again. Don't pick up." A low murmur spread across the courtroom. My ears rang. The clerk continued. "Message from Robert Carter at 9:14 a.m. Let her learn. She always makes everything about herself." I felt like I couldn't breathe. My lawyer touched my arm. "Stay with me, Emily." But I wasn't there anymore. I was back on that hospital bed, alone, dialing their numbers again and again, watching it go to voicemail. The clerk kept reading. "Message at 9:22 a.m. We already told her we're busy. Surgery or not, she'll be fine." Someone in the back gasped. I didn't look at them. I looked at my parents. My mom's lips were tight. My dad finally stopped checking his watch. For the first time, they looked uncomfortable. And something inside me shifted, because for years I thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe I asked for too much. Maybe I imagined things. But hearing it out loud, in a courtroom, in front of strangers, it sounded cruel. It sounded real. And it wasn't just in my head anymore. I swallowed hard. If you've ever felt ignored by the people who were supposed to protect you, you'll understand what came next. Because that day wasn't just about what they said. It was about what they never did. And the truth I was about to uncover would change everything. I didn't cry right away. That surprised me. I thought hearing those texts would break me, that I'd fall apart in front of everyone. But instead, I just stood there, still. My fingers curled into my palm so tight it hurt. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. The judge asked something. My lawyer answered. I didn't hear any of it. All I could focus on was the memory. The hospital room. The smell of antiseptic. The nurse asking, "Is anyone coming to sit with you?" And me, forcing a smile. "Yeah," I said. "They're just running late." But they never came. I blinked and I was back in the courtroom. My mom finally looked at me. Just for a second. Her eyes weren't soft. They weren't sorry. They looked annoyed, like I had caused all this. My stomach dropped. That feeling, I knew it too well. The same feeling I had growing up. Like I was always too much, too emotional, too needy, too dramatic. I shifted my weight, suddenly aware of everyone watching me. The jurors, the judge, strangers, all hearing pieces of my life I used to hide. My lawyer leaned in. "You're doing good. Just breathe." I nodded. But my chest felt tight, because deep down, a small part of me still whispered, what if they're right? What if I really did overreact? What if I made this bigger than it needed to be? That thought hit harder than the texts. I pressed my lips together. No. I remembered the IV in my arm, the way my hands shook dialing their numbers, the way I begged the nurse to try again. That wasn't nothing. That wasn't too much. That was a daughter asking for her parents, and being ignored. I lifted my chin slightly, not strong, not confident, but steadier. If you've ever questioned your own pain because someone else told you it wasn't real, then you know how dangerous that doubt can be. And I didn't realize it yet, but that doubt was exactly what they had been counting on. It didn't start with the surgery. It never does. Looking back, the pattern was always there. Small things at first. I was 10 when I got my first school award. I remember holding the certificate, waiting by the door. "Can we go get ice cream?" I asked. My dad didn't look up from his laptop. "Not tonight. I've got work." My mom sighed. "Emily, it's just a piece of paper." I remember folding it slowly, trying not to care. By 15, I stopped asking for rides, stopped asking for help. I learned how to handle things on my own, or at least, pretend I could. But every now and then, I'd slip, like the time I called my mom after a panic attack at school. "I can't breathe," I told her. She paused, then said, "You need to toughen up, Emily. Life isn't going to slow down for you." Click. That sound stayed with me. College was supposed to be different. I moved to Ohio, got a part-time job, paid most of my own bills. I told myself this was freedom. But really, it was distance, and distance felt safer. Then came the diagnosis. It wasn't life-threatening, but it wasn't small either. I needed surgery. Soon. I remember sitting in my apartment, staring at the doctor's notes, my hands shaking. I called my mom first. "Hey," I said, trying to sound calm. "I need surgery. It's next week." Silence. Then, "Next week? That's really short notice." "I know, I thought maybe you could come." Another pause. "We'll see," she said. That "we'll see" felt like a no, but I held on to it anyway. Because hope, even weak hope, is hard to let go of. Over the next few days, I texted updates, dates, times, details. No response. I told myself they were busy, that they'd show up, that they always did, eventually. But deep down, I knew. The morning of the surgery, I called them. Once, twice, 5 times, 10, straight to voicemail. That was the moment something cracked. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly. Like a thin line breaking inside me. Still, I kept calling, because some part of me refused to believe it was happening again. And I didn't realize it then, but that day wasn't just about being alone. It was the beginning of me finally seeing the truth. Back in the courtroom, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I clasped them together, hoping no one would notice. But my lawyer did. "Emily," she whispered, "we're about to present your call logs." My stomach tightened. Part of me wanted to stop this, to walk out, to avoid hearing more. Because every piece of evidence made it more real. And real meant I couldn't go back to pretending. I glanced at my parents. They looked calm again, composed, like they were waiting this out, like they always had control. And for a second, I felt small again, like I was 15, like I should just drop it, move on, stop making a scene. That thought hit hard, because it sounded like my mom's voice in my head. "Don't make everything a big deal." I swallowed. Maybe she was right. Maybe I should have just let it go. Maybe bringing this to court was too far, too much, too dramatic. My chest tightened. I looked down at my hands. They were still shaking. Not from fear, from something else. Anger. Quiet. Slow. Building. I remembered lying on that hospital bed, calling them again, hearing nothing. That wasn't small. That wasn't nothing. I took a breath, then another, and slowly, I nodded to my lawyer. "Okay," I said. My voice wasn't strong, but it wasn't breaking either. If you've ever stood at the edge of speaking your truth and almost backed away, then you know how heavy that moment feels, because once you step forward, there's no going back. The first person who really questioned me wasn't my parents. It was Jenna, my coworker. We worked at a small insurance office in Columbus. Nothing fancy, just cubicles, coffee stains, and long calls. She noticed something was off the week before my surgery. "You okay?" she asked, leaning on my desk. I hesitated. "Yeah, just tired." She didn't buy it. "Emily," she said, lowering her voice, "you look like you haven't slept in days." I sighed. Then I told her. About the surgery, about my parents, about the calls. She listened quietly. No interruptions, no quick advice. When I finished, she frowned. "That's not normal," she said. I shrugged. "It's just how they are." She shook her head. "No, it's not." That stuck with me, because I had spent years telling myself it was normal, that I just needed to adjust, lower my expectations, try harder. But hearing someone else say it made it harder to ignore. After the surgery, Jenna visited me. She brought soup, sat by my bed, didn't make it a big deal, just showed up. And that felt bigger than anything my parents had ever done. A few days later, I got the hospital bill. It was higher than expected, way higher. I called the billing department. That's when I met Carla. She was calm, straightforward. "Let me review your file," she said. A pause. Then, "Emily, did you have someone listed as your emergency contact?" "Yeah," I said. My parents. Another pause, longer this time. There's something you should see, she said. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? She hesitated, then said, there were notes added to your file, from someone who called in that morning. My chest tightened. Who? Your mother. Everything went quiet. What did she say? I asked. Carla took a breath. She asked if there was a way to delay or cancel financial responsibility because she wasn't planning to be involved. I felt like the floor disappeared. She said that? I whispered. Yes. I closed my eyes. That hurt more than the missed calls. Because it wasn't silence. It was a decision, a clear one. Carla's voice softened. Emily, this isn't okay. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I know. But saying it out loud felt new. That was the moment something changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but enough. Enough to stop making excuses, enough to start asking questions, and enough to take the first step towards something I never thought I'd do, hold them accountable. I thought filing the case would feel empowering. It didn't. It felt terrifying. The first twist came fast. My parents didn't deny anything. They didn't argue the facts. Instead, they flipped the story. Their lawyer stood up and said, Emily Carter has a history of emotional instability. My chest tightened. He continued, we will present records showing exaggerated medical concerns and attention-seeking behavior. It felt like the air was knocked out of me. Attention-seeking? My lawyer objected. The judge allowed limited discussion. Then, they brought out old records, doctor visits, therapy notes, moments from my past, twisted into something else. I felt exposed, small, like everything I had ever struggled with was being used against me. I looked at my parents. My mom didn't flinch. My dad stared straight ahead. That hurt more than anything, because this wasn't just denial. This was strategy, careful, planned. And suddenly, I wasn't just proving they ignored me. I was defending my entire identity. For a moment, I wanted to quit, to drop the case, to disappear. Because maybe this was too big, too messy, too painful. My hands trembled. My lawyer leaned in. They're trying to shake you. Stay focused. I nodded. But inside, I was breaking. Because this twist wasn't about winning or losing. It was about losing control of my own story. And I didn't know yet if I was strong enough to take it back. The days leading up to the final hearing felt heavy, like something was building, and I couldn't stop it. My lawyer worked late nights, gathering records, calling witnesses, preparing. But there was a second layer now. Not just the missed calls, not just the texts. It was about credibility. My parents had planted doubt, and doubt spreads fast. Jenna noticed I was slipping. You're not eating, she said one evening. I'm fine, I replied. You're not, she said firmly, and you don't have to do this alone. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, I let myself lean on someone. I'm scared, I admitted. She nodded. I know. That simple. No judgment, no dismissal, just understanding. Meanwhile, Carla agreed to testify. That surprised me. You don't have to, I told her. She shook her head. Yes, I do. Her voice was steady. People think silence is neutral. It's not. That stayed with me. Because silence had been my parents' strongest tool. The night before court, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The calls, the texts, the records, the accusations. What if I lost? What if they convinced everyone I was the problem? That old doubt crept back in, quiet, persistent. But then I remembered something. The hospital room, the empty chair beside me, and how that felt. That wasn't imagined. That wasn't exaggerated. That was real. I sat up, took a deep breath, and whispered to myself, you know what happened. Not loud, not confident, but enough. Because sometimes, truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand. The courtroom was quieter this time, heavier. like everyone knew something important was about to happen. Carla took the stand. She looked calm, professional, but her hands were steady in a way mine never felt. My parents' lawyer tried to dismiss her. "Just a billing clerk," he said. She didn't react. The judge nodded for her to continue. Carla opened a folder. Not thick, not dramatic, just precise. "These are internal logs," she said, time-stamped, recorded automatically by the hospital system. She handed them to the judge. Then, something unexpected happened. She didn't just talk, she paused, and pressed a button on a small device. A recording played. A voice filled the room. My mom's voice. Clear, sharp. "I'm calling to make sure I'm not financially responsible for this. She tends to exaggerate medical issues." The room went still. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the judge leaned forward. Carla didn't interrupt. She let it play. My mom continued. "I'm not coming. I don't think this is serious." The recording ended. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. I looked at my parents. My mom's face had gone pale. My dad shifted in his seat. For the first time, they looked unsure. Not annoyed, not confident, just exposed. And that was the shift. Not loud, not dramatic, but powerful. Because this wasn't my words. This wasn't my memory. This was them, in their own voice. The judge spoke slowly. "This changes the context significantly." The jurors exchanged looks, some uncomfortable, some angry. One woman in the back row shook her head slowly, her lips pressed tight. A man in the front folded his arms and stared directly at my parents. My chest felt tight, but not from fear, from something else. Relief. Not because I was winning, but because the truth was finally visible, and it didn't need me to defend it anymore. My lawyer stood. "Your Honor," she said, "we have additional documentation showing a pattern of emotional neglect and deliberate avoidance during critical moments in Ms. Carter's life." She placed a binder on the table. "But I don't think we need to go further." She looked at the jury. "Because you've already heard the truth." The judge nodded. "I agree." He turned to my parents. "Do you have anything you'd like to say?" My dad stayed silent. My mom opened her mouth, then closed it. She had nothing. For the first time in my life, she had nothing to say. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not over them, but over myself. If you've ever waited for someone to finally see you and realized you don't need their validation anymore, then you know what that moment feels like. It's not victory. It's freedom. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Because sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. The case didn't end with applause. There was no dramatic speech, no sudden closure, just a decision. Calm, firm, in my favor. But what stayed with me wasn't the verdict. It was the quiet after. I walked out of the courtroom alone. Not rushed, not chased, just steady. My parents didn't follow. They didn't call. They didn't apologize. And for the first time, that didn't break me. It freed me. Because I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't hoping they'd change or finally understand. I had seen the truth, heard it, felt it, and accepted it. Jenna met me outside. "You did it," she said. I shook my head slightly. "It's not about that." She smiled softly. "I know." We stood there for a moment. No rush, no pressure, just quiet. And it felt different, lighter. The sky was clear that day. Spring had finally arrived in full. I could hear birds somewhere nearby, traffic humming in the distance, normal sounds, everyday sounds, but they felt new, like I was hearing them for the first time. Jenna touched my arm gently. "You want to get coffee?" I nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." We walked toward her car, and as we did, I realized something. I didn't need my parents to admit they were wrong. I didn't need them to apologize. I didn't need them. At all. Not anymore. That thought didn't hurt. It didn't feel cold or bitter. It just was. And that was okay. Because some people won't ever give you what you need, no matter how much you ask. no matter how much you deserve it. And holding on only keeps you stuck. But letting go? That's where the healing starts. I took a deep breath, looked up at the sky one more time. And for the first time in a long time, I felt okay. Not perfect, not healed, but okay. And that was enough. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, or dismissed, don't ignore that feeling. Because your pain is real, and you deserve to be heard. Even if it takes time, even if it takes courage, even if it means standing alone, at first. You are not too much. You are not overreacting. You are not the problem. And the moment you stop begging to be understood is the moment you finally see the truth clearly.